I never thought a simple delivery box could trigger a neighborhood war, but that's exactly what happened last summer. I'd only lived in Sycamore Heights for 6 months, and already, it felt like I was trapped in a Stepford nightmare. You know the kind: identical mailboxes, weekly lawn inspections, and a homeowners association that acted more like a surveillance state than a neighborhood committee. At the center of it all was Karen Whitfield. Karen had ruled the HOA with an iron fist for 8 straight years. No one ran against her, not because they liked her, but because they feared her. She wielded her clipboard like a weapon, patrolling the streets in her white Lexus SUV, always armed with a measuring tape and a smug smirk. Her vanity plate actually read, "Hob Boss." Fitting, if you asked me. From the moment I moved in, Karen found something wrong with everything I did. My trash cans were visible for exactly 10 minutes too long on pickup day, violation. My house trim? Apparently painted Navajo white, not the approved creamy eggshell. And don't even get me started on my holiday lights. I tried to stay cordial. I even fixed what she complained about. But deep down, I knew there was no winning with someone like her. Then came the delivery box, a small, locked container mounted beside my front door. I travel a lot for work, and after a couple of packages went missing, I figured it was a smart investment. The box was neat, color-matched to the house, and practically invisible from the street. But 3 days after I installed it, I found a violation notice taped to my door. Unapproved exterior modification. Remove immediately or face daily fines of $100. I wasn't surprised. Annoyed, yes. But I figured I'd follow the rules. I submitted a retroactive approval form to the architectural committee, complete with pictures, measurements, and reasons. They approved it within a few days. I thought that was the end of it. But not for Karen. At the next HOA meeting, she stood up, waved her clipboard like a gavel, and declared she was overriding the committee's decision using her emergency powers. Her words. Emergency powers. Over a package box. I caught up with her afterward to talk calmly at first. I told her the box wasn't for convenience, it was a necessity. I take specialty medications that can't be filled at a normal pharmacy. They're shipped directly from a facility and require secure handling. I needed that box. Karen didn't even blink. Rules are rules, she said with a little smirk. If we let you have your little box, next thing you know, everyone will want one. We can't let the community aesthetic suffer. I explained again that these were life-essential prescriptions. Karen looked me dead in the eye and said, "Sounds like a you problem, not an HOA problem." I wish I could say I laughed it off. But I didn't. I stood my ground. I refused to remove the box. 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter. Karen had started racking up fines, $100 a day. The letter said I now owed $1,400 and had 48 hours to comply or face further action. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about a box. It was about power. So I lawyered up. My attorney specialized in HOA disputes and told me flat out, Karen had overstepped. Her emergency powers weren't even in the bylaws. The committee's approval should have been final. He sent a formal letter to the board. I felt a little relief. Maybe now, with the law involved, they'd back off. But I had no idea what was coming next. The morning after my lawyer's letter went out, I packed for a 3-day work trip. I made sure everything at home was in perfect order, lawn freshly trimmed, trash bins tucked out of sight, lights on a timer. I knew Karen would be watching. But most importantly, I scheduled my monthly medication delivery to arrive while I was away. That box, the one Karen hated so much, was supposed to keep it safe. I left town feeling uneasy, but convinced that the worst was behind me. I returned late Friday night, dragging my suitcase up the porch steps. That's when I saw it, or rather, didn't see it. The package box was gone. Not broken. Not tampered with. Completely gone, unbolted, removed, as if it had never existed. In its place, taped to the siding, was another one of Karen's laminated violation notices. The HOA has exercised its right to remedy the infraction. I stood there stunned. My chest tightened. My prescription should have arrived 2 days ago. I rushed to check the HOA office first thing Saturday morning, but of course, it was closed for the weekend. I pulled out my phone, opened the delivery confirmation. It had been marked as delivered, left inside the box, on schedule. Panic surged through me. I checked behind the bushes, along the porch, under the mat. Nothing. I felt sick. There was only one person I could think to confront. I walked to Karen's house and rang the bell, forcing myself to breathe slowly. She answered in a tennis skirt, holding a racket, as if she hadn't just crossed a line that could jeopardize my health. "Karen," I began carefully. "My medication was delivered 2 days ago, while I was away. The package box is gone. Do you know what happened to it?" She looked me dead in the eye and said, almost cheerfully, "Oh, that? It was sitting out there looking awful. Probably attracting thieves. So I got rid of it." My blood went cold. "You disposed of it?" She tilted her head. "If you're having unmarked packages shipped to your house, how do I know you're not bringing drugs into our community? You said it yourself, you travel all the time. What am I supposed to think?" "It wasn't unmarked," I snapped. "It had pharmacy labels all over it. That medication is worth over $1,000 and I need it to function. You had no right." Karen just shrugged, stepping back. "Take it up with the board. I have a match to get to." She started closing the door. I put my hand gently against the edge, not forcefully, just enough to stop her. "Karen, I'm not trying to fight. I just need to know where you put it." That's when her expression shifted. She widened her eyes in mock fear and raised her voice for the whole street to hear. "Are you threatening me? Remove your hand immediately or I'll call the police." I froze. "I'm not threatening you," I said quietly. "I'm just asking. Please." Her reply was ice cold. "I told you. I disposed of it. Maybe next time you'll follow the rules." And then she slammed the door. I stood on her front step, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I was now without my medication for at least 2 weeks, and depending on how the pharmacy handled emergency refills, maybe longer. My health wasn't something I could gamble with. I called the specialty pharmacy in a panic. The pharmacist, Sarah, listened quietly as I explained. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then she said, "She what? That's not just a violation, that's a crime. Tampering with a controlled substance, theft. We need to report this right now." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about HOA rules anymore. This was serious. Sarah, the pharmacist, didn't waste a second. "I'm filing a formal incident report on our end," she said, her voice tight with concern. "This medication is classified as a controlled substance. We have proof of delivery, temperature control logs, and chain of custody. If someone deliberately took and destroyed it, that's a federal offense. We're talking mail tampering, theft of medication, obstruction of medical treatment." I sat in my kitchen, holding the phone in one hand, the violation notice in the other, and felt the ground shift under my feet. Up until that moment, I'd been treating this as a frustrating neighbor dispute, an HOA scuffle that went too far. But this was criminal. "Don't worry about your refill," Sarah added. "In emergencies like this, we can apply for an override with your insurance. I'll push it through today. But I need you to file a police report immediately." I thanked her, hung up, and drove straight to the police station. When I walked in and explained what had happened, the officer at the front desk looked skeptical, like I was overreacting to a stolen Amazon package. But then I showed him the pharmacy receipt, the violation notices, the HOA's letter, and, most importantly, the lawyer's correspondence that already warned the HOA to back off. His face changed. He brought me into an interview room and took a full statement. I emphasized that these weren't casual vitamins. They were tightly regulated, temperature-sensitive, and essential to my health. I even showed him my insurance claim history, proving how difficult and expensive they were to replace. Has the suspect admitted to taking it? He asked, tapping away at the computer. She told me directly, I said. She looked me in the eye and said she got rid of it because she thought it was an eyesore, or contraband. She also accused me of running a drug operation. The officer blinked, then sat back in his chair. All right. We'll investigate. I wasn't sure what that meant, or if anything would come of it. But I filed the report, and tried to forget the sound of Karen's voice calling me a threat in front of her neighbors. The next day was Sunday. I spent the morning cleaning the house, trying to distract myself from the throbbing anxiety growing in my chest. I hadn't yet received confirmation from Sarah about the insurance override, and every hour that passed without my medication made me feel worse. Then, just before noon, I heard a flurry of noise outside. Voices. Walkie-talkies. A sharp knock on my door. I stepped onto the porch and froze. Across the street, 2 police officers were escorting Karen Whitfield, clipboard queen of Sycamore Heights, into the back of a squad car. She was wearing a lavender church dress and a look of stunned disbelief. Neighbors stood on their lawns watching. Some had their phones out. Others were whispering with wide eyes and little smiles. I noticed one man clap once, just once, before his wife elbowed him. I didn't move. I didn't wave. I didn't speak. Karen looked across the street at me. And for the first time since I moved in, she looked small. I didn't know the full story yet, but I had a feeling Sarah had come through. And I was right. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Sarah at the pharmacy. I thought you'd want an update, she said, sounding almost breathless. I spoke directly with the detective this morning. I gave them everything, our delivery logs, the temperature tracking data, even the signature from the driver. It was a slam dunk. I couldn't stop thanking her. Then she added, and there's more. Apparently when the police questioned her, she admitted to taking the package. Said she thought it was suspicious and didn't want it bringing bad attention to the neighborhood. So she tossed it into a commercial dumpster, which has already been emptied. Gone. Destroyed. No chance of recovery. It hit me harder than I expected, not just the medication itself, but the principle of it. Someone had looked at my private, critical health needs, and decided they didn't matter. And here's the kicker, Sarah continued. When they searched her property, they found multiple packages in her garage. Not yours, other people's. I blinked. Wait, what? She'd apparently been collecting packages from porches for months. HOA enforcement, she called it. Some were returned, but most weren't. She'd created her own little kingdom of neighborhood control. That part actually made my stomach turn. It wasn't just me. I'd been her latest victim, but far from the first. That night, I finally heard back from my lawyer. He confirmed the charges: theft, mail tampering, and unlawful disposal of prescription medication. But because the meds were classified as controlled substances, the penalties were much higher. And the best part? The DA wanted to make an example out of her. The very next day, an emergency HOA board meeting was held. The community center parking lot was packed, and it felt like every resident in Sycamore Heights showed up. Whispers buzzed through the room like flies. Karen walked in with her usual stiff posture, but there was no clipboard in sight. Just a forced smile and darting eyes. The meeting was swift. No debates. No excuses. Just a unanimous vote to remove her as HOA president, effective immediately. Some people clapped. Others stood quietly, as if they weren't sure it was real. Karen didn't even speak. She just stood, nodded once, and walked out. But as she passed me in the hallway on her way out of the building, she stopped. Her voice was soft, brittle. I never thought they'd actually arrest me over a stupid box, she muttered. It was just a box. She looked like someone who just realized the world had shifted beneath her feet, and it wasn't going to shift back. But to me, it had never been just a box. It was about respect. About dignity. About the right to exist in your own home without being hunted over petty rules. And now, for once, justice was louder than a clipboard. After the emergency board meeting, something shifted in Sycamore Heights. For the first time since I moved in, people started talking to each other, really talking. Neighbors who had once avoided eye contact behind trimmed hedges now waved. A few even came by to thank me. One man, Mr. Alvarez from 2 houses down, admitted Karen had fined him for having the wrong shade of mulch. Another woman said her daughter's bike was confiscated from the porch during Karen's infamous aesthetic audit. We'd all been suffering in silence, afraid to push back. But now that silence had cracked. A week later, I received confirmation that my emergency prescription override had gone through. The medication arrived with extra documentation and had to be signed for in person. This time, I handed the delivery guy a cold bottle of water and a thank you note. It felt like a victory. But I wasn't done yet. Karen had pled guilty to reduced charges. Her lawyer must have begged for a deal. Still, she was fined $5,000, sentenced to 2 years of probation, and ordered to pay full restitution for all the stolen or destroyed property. The police had tracked down 8 other residents whose packages were found in her garage. Turns out, her crusade for control had crossed more lines than anyone had realized. And the best part? She couldn't serve on the HOA board again. Ever. Her fall from power was swift and public. The woman who once strutted through the neighborhood with a tape measure and a smirk now walked her dog with sunglasses on and her head down. If she even dared to look at me, it was only in passing, and never for long. There was no dramatic apology. No big moment of redemption. Just a quiet exit from a kingdom she'd built on fear. I replaced the package box, this time with full approval from the board. Not only that, but the HOA began revisiting its guidelines. Several residents came forward with suggestions for reform, and I joined the committee to make sure what happened to me wouldn't happen again. It's strange, all this started with a simple piece of metal bolted beside my front door. Something meant to protect me turned into a battleground. But I've learned something. Sometimes standing your ground isn't about winning a fight, it's about drawing a line no one else could see, and daring someone to cross it. Karen crossed that line. And for once, the neighborhood didn't look away. It stood beside me. And in a place ruled for so long by petty fear, that felt like a revolution.